This is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede, and later in the show, I will give you a preview of a new hour-long documentary I just completed on the rise of Ron DeSantis. It'll premiere next week. But first, we are going to look at a few scandals happening on the local level. Last week, former Plantation Mayor Lynn Stoner was arrested on charges of official misconduct for allegedly falsifying records to help a developer. And North Miami Beach Mayor Anthony DeFilippo was arrested for allegedly voting using an address in the city, even though he didn't actually live there. And then there is the city of Miami. In a few minutes, you will hear from two Miami Herald reporters who have been investigating Miami Mayor Francis Suarez. Before we get into that, however, we have to start with another Miami outrage, this one involving City Commissioner Joe Carollo. A federal jury found Carollo liable in a civil case for violating the First Amendment rights of two local business owners. Those business owners argued that because they supported one of Carollo's political opponents, Carollo used the power of city government to try and shut down their restaurant, Ball and Chain, in Little Havana. The jury agreed and awarded the owners more than $63 million that Carollo is liable for personally. After the verdict, I spoke to one of the owners of Ball and Chain, Bill Fuller, and asked what the verdict meant to him.
Well, the most important thing is that this verdict is really a reputational redemption. After we filed this case, the city worked for many, many years in making a lot of these allegations against us in an effort to finally bring them to trial. And it was extremely disparaging against my partner and I. We had dedicated our life's work to revitalizing the Little Havana community. And we suffered not only the attacks on our businesses and our properties, but also the reputational attack. And so a huge weight was lifted yesterday after being 8 weeks in trial and having the jury see through the madness that was what the city was bringing to court and Joe Carollo. And it's a vindication. It's a reputational vindication, and it feels great today.
Well, tell me, what have the last few years been like for you as you've dealt with this, dealt with the city? And let me make this point. I mean, what was always so striking to me about what you experienced was this is dangerous, and I don't think people fully understood. This is the weaponization of government to try to silence people for their political views. The fact that you supported an opponent of Joe Carollo made you a target of government, and that should never be the case.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that the last few years is something that I wouldn't wish upon anybody. It was absolutely devastating to us, to our employees, to our vendors, to our tenants, the personal toll that it took on ourselves and our families. Our lives were really absolutely disrupted. And all because of this, all because of political payback, because of retribution, because of a man that really understands the mechanisms and the weapons that he has at his disposal, being in the power position that he has, and then mobilizing them, perfectly mobilizing and getting individuals in the city to do his bidding. And when they did not do his bidding, he either terminated or demoted them. And when they did do his bidding, he promoted them and elevated them into levels where they could continue to exact this type of revenge on us.
You know, let's be candid. It's a massive verdict that you're likely not to see anywhere close to the $60+ million that have been awarded to you and your partner. Does that make a difference that you're probably not going to see any of that money?
The most important aspect of this is that he has been held personally liable, and the money and the amount that the jury awarded needs to have a chilling effect on him. It is very, very important that he is held accountable and he pays this liability. If the city were to come in and pay this liability, it would be an excuse, again, for any politician, including Joe Carollo, to continue to conduct themselves in this way, knowing that there was a bailout down the road for him. If he can only scrape together $1 million or $2 million or even $300,000, he Well, it'll be small in comparison to the economic damage and harm he has caused us, but certainly it will have an impact on his life. And I can't even imagine that it would be the same, the one we had experienced. We hold him accountable, the jury holds him accountable, and he needs to pay for the damage he has caused us.
Now, he said he's going to appeal, and they'll review, obviously, the jury's decision, and it could be, that process could take years. What do you do in the interim? What steps are you taking to try to secure whatever you can get from Joe Carollo?
My understanding is that as soon as this week, our attorneys will be moving to attach to his house, for example, that he has in Coconut Grove. Like I've said, he is not just a bully, but he has also showed himself to be a coward throughout this entire process. He's a man that understood exactly what he was doing, and now he's trying to evade the consequences of that. And it's been his MO. He said he's the law. He thinks he's above the law. And he's going to continue to hide behind the city attorney and the fact that they're paying for his legal fees, and continue to try to evade what the government has now laid out and what our federal constitutional rights allow us to seek.
What do you think about the idea that the City of Miami taxpayers have been paying for his attorneys in a private civil suit against him and for his actions?
I will tell you this, that no corporation in America would have allowed this. Shareholders would never have allowed for a company, knowing that they were so wrong, to continue to fight and waste capital like this. Not a taxpayer that I know of has ever been advised or ever had the moment to vote on paying for Joe Carollo's legal fees. This is a unilateral decision that has been taken by the city attorney's office, and it's simply a way for them to cover all of their tracks, to be able to control the narrative here.
Do you think that this is grounds for him to be removed from office?
He absolutely should be removed from office. It is evident that he violated the city charter of Miami. He over and over instructed subordinates of the city of Miami manager without their permission to go after our properties and seek violations. That's a direct charter violation.
You sort of got a little emotional after the jury reached a verdict when you were speaking outside. Where does that emotion come from? What has this really been like for you personally?
I can only describe this as a situation I suffered as somebody who was like 6 or 7 in elementary school in Miami, where I was being bullied. And I never forget that it was my mom that had to come in and intervene and speak to the other family and really get me off the hook here. But this has been a true bully experience, one of a proportion that you can't even begin to imagine, because to defend it costs millions. To defend it has your legacy and your reputation on the line. It has people that have been professionals that you've known for years turn their back on you and subscribe to this level of madness. And it's something that's so shocking, because you feel that being in the US, you have the right protections, you have the legal protections that wouldn't even allow this to happen, that this wouldn't even be possible. And to think that this happens to you and to live with it each and every day, 24 hours a day, it keeps you up at night. It has you thinking when the next time this is going to happen, how it's going to happen, how it's going to cost you, what level. I mean, it's insane. And it was unbelievable, the emotional impact, the weight that I felt come off my shoulders and my partners when that verdict was read, was just the liability, just getting to the point that they understood and agreed that this man was in fact liable for violating us and our rights. It was a tremendous amount of relief and extremely emotional.
Did you ever think during this process of just simply walking away from your businesses in Little Havana, going somewhere else outside the city of Miami, maybe even leaving Florida entirely?
Look, the intent of Carollo's and the intent of the city was to absolutely break us. And when I mean break us, they wanted to bankrupt us. They wanted to shut our businesses down. They wanted to violate our properties. They were sending notices to our banks to suggest to our banks that they should be foreclosing on our properties. It's a huge weight. Like yes, we have been successful and we have a lot of business, but even larger businesses can be collapsed very quickly. And it was absolutely their intent to make sure that we never arrived at that courthouse and had our voice heard. We made tremendous sacrifices to make it happen.
But did you ever think about just walking away? Was there ever a moment where you said to yourself, maybe this just isn't worth it, I should just go?
Look, we love this city. We love Little Havana. We have dedicated it. It wasn't an economic project. Martin, my partner, and I have both Cuban heritage, and it was really a passion project of ours. And if we were simply to have just gotten up and left, that also would have been a victory for this bully, for this type of attack. And that's not something that we are prepared to accept yet. We're going to continue to fight. We're going to continue to align ourselves what we think is what's allowable by the law. And we hope to and pray that we're going to be in Little Havana in the city of Miami for a long time.
Carollo continues to maintain he did nothing wrong and said he will appeal the verdict. When we come back, the Miami Herald investigation of Miami Mayor Francis Suarez. Stay with us.